What's up, my friends? Welcome back to another edition of Crossing the Line podcast. I am your humble host, Tyler Zulli. These guys surrounding me in a circle in some capacity: Mike Davella, Jack Molesky, Mark Fagnani. Probably got that entirely wrong. So I hope, Mike, you mess with it in post to make me look good, because otherwise I'm going to look really stupid. But another episode number 2. The first one, you kind of work out the jitters a little bit, and you kind of settle into a role. So I hope that we're settled in a little bit more than we were last week. So guys, once again, great to be back with you on a Monday recording, and hopefully whenever you get a chance to watch this, well, whatever day it might be, a pleasant one to you. What's going on, boys?
I want to start it off by saying I think it's a superpower of all waiters and waitresses to the second that you need the check, they take the longest possible way to get you that check. I just had to wait. I was on here late because of the fact that it took 35 minutes from the time we finished our meal to get the check after they checked up on us 5 times during the meal.
You just look like a guy who's not going to tip a lot, so they don't fucking care.
That's true. And Josie looks like a gal that would tip a lot, so I feel like that balances it out.
That's true. Poor Josie. She's getting profiled already. You guys are
She's hung around for 8 years. It's her fault by this point.
Can you disclose where you went for dinner? Now I'm hungry.
Paul Fred Chang's. I believe that's what the PF stands for.
I thought it was preferred food, but
I don't know.
No. I think Jack's right on this one.
The food's great, but the service was great until the last 35 minutes.
That always makes me think of BF Wang's from Drake and Josh. That Mushu pork is ridiculous.
Does Jack give good tip? Coming up next on Crossing the Line.
We can just say we can say it's no.
A modest 16%.
That might be our best opening ever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Jack's up to date, so.
Well, now that we figured out that Jack is a horrendous tipper when we go out to restaurants, I think we need one of those bells of shame. You know, shame. After that, let's get into some sports today. Obviously, the biggest news of the weekend and this past week has been the NCAA tournament. And guys, the one thing that I wanted to start with today, because I don't know how you guys feel about it. I have had such a revelation this past 72 to, I don't know, 108 hours or however the math works of watching these NCAA tournament games. I don't know how you guys feel about this. And this is going to seem like such a cheap response from somebody who's so invested into sports the way that we all have been for all of our lives. The best thing that ever happened to me, the best thing that I ever did when it came to the NCAA tournament, was the first time I've done it in years, like since I was a child. I did not make a bracket. And I'll be honest with you guys, like I did one just by myself, right? I did the ESPN app and I put it together, but like I didn't do one for money. I didn't do one with friends. I didn't do one for work. Like I did not make a bracket. And the last 4 days of basketball, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and even the play-in games, but the 4 days specifically, have been so much more enjoyable to not have to worry about things.
I feel liberated. I did the same exact thing this year. I've been making
Great
4, 5, 9, 400 brackets a year, and I can't get enough of it. I'm the same dude that plays 4 different fantasy teams at the same time. I do, but to be able to watch a game and essentially do what I love to do and just hope on the Cinderella story the whole way, that's fun. That's fun to me.
Yeah.
This was,
I think, making a bracket makes it more stressful, whereas making a fantasy team makes you care about every game. Like a bracket does the opposite effect of what a fantasy team. I made brackets. I made a couple. That's why I don't tip well.
You don't have any money left.
We got to the genesis of it. Yeah.
Your money's gone from your $150 entry fee.
Oh, right. San Diego State. Daddy's got to pay for dinner.
But gone are the days of me paying more than $10 for a bracket and actually it's money that I can lose that I would spend on something stupid anyway. So it's nice to win, but I truly don't care about my bracket the second I make it. And yeah, it's a lot more fun to not care because then you're always rooting for the higher seed.
I don't know if you guys remember this. There is a distinct college memory. Like my brain cells have faded since I met you guys.
Why?
Because of our drinking antics. I mean, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, Mom. You didn't hear this.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But I can distinctly remember a weekend. I don't remember if it was Saturday or Sunday, whenever the game was played. Actually, it might have been Friday because it's the first weekend of the tournament. the four of us were together, and it was 2 seed Michigan State and 15 seed Middle Tennessee State. And I had taken Michigan State to win the tournament that year. I had every bracket. And in college, when you're in college, a $20 bracket is a significant monetary investment.
Yeah.
So I remember sitting in Mike and Jack's apartment, and we had been, throwing them back all day, playing drinking games. And this game is going on. And I remember being so utterly frustrated. I didn't want to hang out with you guys anymore. And it wasn't your fault. Like, it was not your guys' fault that I was in a miserable mood. But Middle Tennessee State, if you remember that game, they just kept knocking down threes and knocking down threes and knocking down threes. And Michigan State never had a chance to climb back. And it was a 15-2 upset. And I remember walking out of your guys' apartment and just walking down the hallway and launching a beer down the hallway. I was so mad.
The most college thing ever, you just said.
Oh, super college story. But here, the point I'm trying to make is, like, there was such a freedom to not be tied down to a basketball team. Like, I had a team I thought was going to win the tournament. They're out. They didn't win their second round. But guess what? I don't care, guys. I really don't.
I remember that feeling. I only had it once, and I don't know. I think it was a 2 versus a 15. But it was I had taken Georgetown with Otto Porter Jr. back in the day, and I remember I had
University of Ohio.
I had a band recital that night, and I remember checking my phone after the band recital in high school, and it was like everything notification wise. I don't even know how the notifications looked back then, but it was like
SMS text messages, flip phone.
We lost. Georgetown did not win, and I had them going all the way. And I was like, it's the second night or the first night. How am I already done my bracket, which was terrible. But I'm with you. I feel like we did have an unspoken agreement before this show. I originally made a bracket just for me, and I took Penn State all the way. And then I got invited last minute by my buddy Jameson to get into one of those throw $20 on it type of deals. So I made one. I took Houston. Still not feeling that confident about it, but I was 100th percentile through most of the day Friday, and I felt unbelievable. I was like, I am the smartest man alive. And we got to probably 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I just lost everything from there on out. It was just like, okay, the Purdue thing happened, and then I had Memphis going to the Sweet 16. They lost. And that was kind of a gut punch because I thought that they should have gotten the timeout call, and FAU ended up winning on the last basket of the game. And then I had Kent State as my sleeper winning and going to the Sweet 16 as a 13 seed. I had Arizona State as an upset pick, and they all lost. So now I'm just kind of back in that same boat of, well, next year it'll be fun, or maybe we win, but it's $20, whatever.
I've done brackets for more than 10 years now, and I feel like I haven't learned much. I don't know how you possibly could. It's completely random. It's one of the most random events in sports. But I will say I'm proud of myself this year. There are 3 teams that I have sworn off ever taking past the second round. It is Arizona, it is Purdue, and it is, because of the mid-2000s, early 2000s, Missouri. Those teams always choke in this tournament, and especially Arizona and Purdue. They are terrible, terrible, terrible teams in the NCAA tournament, and now you can probably lump in Virginia with them too. But it is uncanny how bad those teams are consistently every single first and second round of this tournament.
Oh, it was amazing. When we turned on, so I was at work, so we put it in the pro shop. It was a bunch of athletes, all of us basically watching these games. I'm watching Virginia.
Did
and
you
call yourself an athlete?
The athletes?
I'm glad you caught that too.
Don't worry, Mark. I think you're an athlete. I didn't laugh at you.
Oh, I'm not. It was all them. I just managed them, man. Come on now. No, but we're watching, and I'm like, everybody, for the point it started, I said, no, Virginia's going to lose this. I don't know why. I don't know how, but they're going to lose this because Virginia, West Virginia, and Virginia Tech. Something about Virginia, I don't know what it is. Those Virginias, they just blow it in the tournament every year. They never get past the second round, if that. The amount of times I've seen West Virginia lose in the first round is incredible.
And we talked last week about this, that don't take past reality into present time. Mark, you and I were back and forth with it about Ohio State quarterbacks. And I feel almost hypocritical saying this because I was very defensive of those Ohio State quarterbacks, or of at least of CJ Stroud and Justin Fields. But you're right to a sense where either it's a coaching style, it's a schematics thing, it's the way you recruit thing, because you've got some of these teams that either their coaching style is outdated, which is the coach's fault. Their recruiting is strong but doesn't get put together, which is the coach's fault, or you don't have the ability to play in clutch moments, which when you have turnover the way that college sports does, that's the coach's fault. So like that's all I can keep coming back to when listen, I know the coach doesn't play, but it's all I can keep coming back to when these same programs continue to choke in similar spots year after year after year after year.
I mean, at like a professional level, I feel like you can kind of look at the athlete. You can look at the player and say, well, he should be able to do better. They don't need the coaching to get that much better. Yeah, the coaching, you have to be great still. I'm not going to say that you don't. But I think you're right. In the college, area, it's all about the coach. It's all about the recruiting. It's all about what they do to lead up to that moment.
Right. Well, that's obvious in any sport in college, but I think you can see it most pertinently in college football. If you're a good player, there's a mutual respect there to go play for a Nick Saban or a Kirby Smart, or I even would say like, you go back to Urban Meyer. Who would you think I was going to go to?
That's who I thought you were about to say.
I'm just saying that's the point. Players want to play for them, and they have a track record that's proven. But I mean, you can say the same thing in the NCAA. Now that Coach K's out of the league and, things are shaken up a little bit, it's a little bit more interesting to me, but you could almost predict like, all right, I know this team is going to go far. I know this team has a lot of talent, and it all has to do with the coach, because not only are you going to get far in the tournament from good coaching, but you're going to be able to recruit well. And why do you recruit well? Because you have a proven guy at the helm. And there are a handful of guys that I think consistently made it significantly deep into the tournament, and they're all leaving now. I mean, we've seen a couple of guys retire now, and Coach K, Jay Wright, to name a few
Jim
more.
Boeheim retired.
Fair. Well, that was an interesting situation.
Retired is
but I mean, how many guys can you name now that are those type of proven guys that you really rely on? It's a very tough commodity to come across now.
Well, Tom Izzo, he's made the Sweet 16 in over half of his appearances. He's probably the only dude right now that's consistent. But
I think Bill Self probably gets that claim too.
Yeah, I would say it's tough because I don't think college, like if this happened in pro sports for these teams consistently out in the first round, like this coach is fired after the second or third time max it happened. College is a different game because you also have to play the recruiting game. And if you take someone like, for example, if this was pro sports, Matt Painter was fired 3-4 years ago. But Matt Painter has established a decent culture there where they get in a certain amount of players, they get in a certain amount of good players. They're always going to be solid. So it's really tough to say, hey, Matt Painter, you're gone because we lose in the first round. Because if they get rid of Matt Painter, they take a step back where they're not relevant or the way they're relevant right now for 5 years. And it's tough to rebuild back to that level. But yeah, like Matt Painter is the best example of they play so well during the regular season and then they suck in the postseason. And they always have this big man who's supposed to be the next big thing. I mean, Zach Edey is the most overrated player in college basketball. He might win the Wooden Player of the Year award, but he is 7'4", 300 pounds. And that is the most impressive thing about him. There is nothing about his bad. If you're that tall and you're not being drafted in the NBA first round, you're not a good basketball player.
Can you say that Matt Painter is the James Franklin of college basketball?
No, because James Franklin is better than Matt Painter.
At least James Franklin wins sometimes.
Like James Franklin took Penn State.
So does Matt Painter in the regular season.
Sure, in the regular season.
Want to make 10 championships.
Yeah. But Matt Painter never had, like, James Franklin came in shortly after historic, restrictions were put on Penn State's program and was able to build them back pretty consistently. Like, no one ever considers Purdue, at least I think no one smart considers them a national title threat. Like, yeah, they were number one. How many people truly thought Purdue was going to win this tournament?
You're a bunch of idiots if you pick Purdue.
Bunch of frauds.
Is what Jack just said.
I had him out in the round of 32. I had him winning the one game, and I
smart man
could have gotten him out sooner.
Well, and so I'm glad that you guys bring up Matt Painter, because it kind of brings me to the next thing that we're going to get into, which is, Jack, you pretty well laid it out, the difference between professional coaching and college coaching, because my thought process when it comes to firing coaches has always been, if you are going to fire a coach, you need to get equal to or greater than.
Mhm.
So, like, for example, when the Toronto Raptors fired Dwayne Casey, coming off, by the way, winning coach of the year, like they were coach of the year, they underperformed in the playoffs. I think they won 50 some games and they got bounced in the playoffs again. It became evident that Dwayne Casey, although a very good coach, it was time to move on from Dwayne Casey. And so they hired Nick Nurse out of the G League. And I think a lot of people went, okay, maybe. And then Nick Nurse got the benefit of the doubt because they traded for Kawhi Leonard and went on to win the NBA title because Kawhi Leonard apparently walked on water that year because he was so damn good that entire season.
He didn't apparently. He walked on water that year.
Legitimately was like biblical how good he was. But then you realize too, okay, so Kawhi goes and the Raptors are still competitive. Okay, Nick Nurse is actually a good coach. But when you're in the pros, you have to get that. I think you have to get that feel of equal to or greater than. College basketball is a lot more difficult to maneuver because of everything that you laid out, Jack, with all the recruiting things that you have to consider, with helping grow young men and into adults, right? Like you're growing 18, 19-year-old kids into 22, 23-year-old adults. There's a lot that goes on into the college coaching ranks that makes it very, very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I think we like Mike and I went through this, and you guys did. We all did Penn State, but when the almost yearly James Franklin rumors come up, and then they finally extend him for this long period of time, like, do I think James Franklin is the best coach in college football? No, he's definitely not. X's and O's guy, he's middle of the pack at best. Recruiting wise, you could make a case that he's definitely top 10, maybe even top 5. But that's the thing. Like, you really have to weigh these things. Like, he could be a bad X's and O's guy, but you can't even worry about X's and O's until you have good enough players to compete with the top dogs. And that's what he brings in. And so that was one of those where, like, you look at the college landscape and anyone else that they could have hired was already at a team that they would have taken over Penn State. Right. So you're not taking a step back. And then to become the next level that you want to be, eventually you do have to make a long-term commitment. Penn State basketball is going to figure that out real soon if they don't re-sign Micah Shrewsbury, because if they don't get him back, they're taking 2 steps back and they probably won't be in the tournament for another 10 years. If you get him again, you establish that culture, you say, we're committed to this program long-term. And whether you think he's the best fit for the job or not, that shows recruits, guys that are coming in, that, hey, you're committed to it. Like, let's start to build something here.
Well, and I think that opens up another side of the conversation, because obviously Micah Shrewsbury is a hot commodity. He clearly was the driving force behind Penn State going from zero to hero, contender from pretender, but I can make those puns all day. Obviously, he is a commodity in this market, and there are going to be big name teams. I mean, he's meeting right now with Notre Dame. That is a serious possibility. A much more, established program than Penn State in terms of basketball. Penn State, not a lot of success, where he could go in that route of, well, they took a chance on me, I'm going to stay with them. As we were talking about before we started recording this, he doesn't owe Penn State anything. And I feel like Penn State could throw the bag at him and he still would use this as leverage to say, hey, look what I did at Penn State. Somebody who actually has established their basketball program, come and take me. I'll take your money, and I'm going to be able to use your brand to make myself even more competitive next time I'm in the tournament.
Yeah, and beyond their brand, they also get, everything that comes along with being part of a powerful program. Penn State basketball, maybe women's basketball back in the day was, but men's basketball has never been, and probably never really will be, unfortunately, a powerful program. We have football, we have wrestling, we have volleyball. We don't have basketball. Sorry.
So spend the money then. That's really what it comes down to. That if you want it to be a powerhouse, spend the money. That doesn't mean overnight that you're going to have a shift in skill set and in mindset for a basketball team that's been more times than not a doormat compared to what they were this year, which was an impressive, unexpected run. But even if it's not Micah Shrewsbury, even if Shrewsbury says, I'm out and going to Notre Dame, invest in a program. And this doesn't just have to be for Penn State. It's just the example that you guys used. If you want a return, like ROI is real when it comes to collegiate sports. Like if you want a return on investment, there has to be an investment to begin with.
Yeah, it's even more real now in the NIL era that we're just starting to enter. I mean, that changes the game, and that goes back to when we're talking about coaches and what they have to navigate. Like that's another piece of the puzzle of why you wouldn't get rid of a guy. Like some guys navigate the NIL world much better than others. So you add on all these components where in the pros it's X's and O's, it's winning and losing. Like if you lose a couple seasons in a row, sorry, you're out, because it doesn't matter who's the coach of the team. Players come to that other team because of money. That actually now shifts a little bit in college too, because now you're getting guys coming to teams maybe for the money over who the coach is. So there's just so many more variables in the college world that make for a good coach. And that's why I think it's such a nuanced discussion, because like what no one's going to check all the boxes, right? So which boxes are more important? And I think that shifts almost every year now with the way the landscape is changing.
I think it's great that a lot of these coaches that you said are good with the NIL money are just good at it because they've been doing it for a really long time. Oh, I mean, they haven't been doing it.
No. He said it's not
Nobody gets
nonprofit.
paid.
It's nonprofit organization.
We definitely didn't talk to the athletes every single day when we were doing broadcasting back there. They definitely didn't tell us anything ever, probably.
No.
Yeah.
Don't say anything.
I'm glad you made that comment, because we have been serious for almost 10
You're not allowed to tell
I
anybody
felt like
that.
Jim Halpert in The Office, where I just erased the whiteboard in that 0 minutes since our last nonsense.
I needed to make sure there was some nonsense. We were just too serious.
Exactly.
This is not what the people want.
No. So let me ask you guys something. With these coaches, we're talking about it's a very gray area when you got these college coaches, but there are two guys to me that I think, even though they've done a really nice job at their programs, should not be their head coaches of their programs next year. And one of the guys that you mentioned, we've already talked about, is Matt Painter. Matt Painter, in his last 3 tournament losses, has lost to a 13 seed, a 15 seed, and is now in exclusive territory with one other coach
Who should be the guy.
who is the other guy who should be fired to lose to a 16 seed.
Former shares the same name as a very successful singer.
Yeah.
That's
So here's like you yes, it's Cher. So you have to at some point look at this. Like Matt Painter, listen, I don't like Purdue because they're a Big Ten school, but like they're not one of those Big Ten schools that like lights my fire. Right? Like Ohio State lights the fire, Michigan lights the fire, Rutgers lights the fire because they like to talk a lot of smack. But like Purdue doesn't light the fire for me.
They might, after the way they were talking about Zach Edey during that
and
championship broadcast. That was annoying as hell.
And that's the thing too. Like you watch Zach Edey and you watch the way that team performed. We were talking about schematics failing, and that's on the coach. You had a guy that was 7'4", as you mentioned, Jack, a wooden candidate, probably going to win the award. It looked like one of the best players in college basketball at times, and might be one of the best. And I don't know how you can be the best and overrated, but it might be there. And you play a team who, by the way, shouldn't have been in the tournament. No disrespect to Fairleigh Dickinson, but shouldn't have been in the tournament. They didn't win their conference. Merrimack did, but this ridiculous rule about you can't get into the tournament for 4 years. Forget that. It's a stupid rule. That rule's dumb. It needs to be abolished. But not the point. You lose to a team whose average height was 6'4". They were the smallest average team in Division I basketball. You have a guy that's 7'4". You are a foot taller than their average players. And you are so slow defensively that their guards are gassing you off the dribble. And then you go up, you turn and face, you go to the rim strong.
But what's Zach Edey's warp though? What is it?
I don't know. I don't know what his ex washing machine ranking is. But
every time I see that guy play basketball, I just have the E.T. by Katy Perry song stuck in my head. You're from a whole nother world.
But like this guy makes me so damn mad for no reason.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. He's like Joakim Noah. You look at him, you're like, I'm pissed off. I don't like you.
But Noah could play.
I hated him.
I can't
stand announcers talking about a guy that's good because they're supposed to say that. Like, tell me what your eyes are actually seeing. This guy sucks. He had 30 points. He had 30 points because he can tap the guy pat him on the head as he places the ball and not even jump into the hoop. He's not good at basketball.
He's one of those guys. He's Taco Fall from UCF. He's like him. He's just really freaking tall, but like with that, he's not very athletic. So he's just kind of like, I am standing over you. He's like a cartoon character. You know, when you're like watching like the Jetsons or something, they have like these really tall looking stick figure dudes and they can just like dunk the ball in. Like that's what he looks like.
I've never watched
you watching a lot of Jetsons lately?
I'm just thinking of like old time cartoons. I was trying to put
you
it
had
in
a million cartoons to come up with in your in that brief time frame, and you
that would have been a good time for a Monstars reference.
Decided on Jetsons.
What I thought of.
Dude, the Jetsons are dunking shit every other episode. George crosses people up all the time.
Of course he did.
His name was a baller, all right? A baller.
Hezzy step back Jimbo. George Jetson.
George Jetson, the future coach of Purdue.
You can't be any worse than Matt Painter.
That's my point. If you don't have
let me make a call and let them know that he's available.
You might as well go with the dark horse.
Dear Purdue Athletics, I got a guy. Listen, let me give you his resume. Knows how to fly cars.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Hired.
Also, I'm pretty sure, just to go off on another tangent here, when I was in elementary school, I was promised flying cars by this age. What the hell happened to that? Like the future.
I don't know what's a bigger disappointment, that or Scott's Tots.
Ooh. Hey, Mr. Scott.
Those poor kids. Those poor kids got
gonna make our dreams come true. So we were all office.
What did he get? A laptop battery for everyone?
We're all Office fans here. Is that episode more cringy or is the dinner party episode more cringy? Because I think those are pound for pound the two cringiest episodes of that series. But like, which one is more?
I feel so sad for Michael Scott during the dinner episode because he's so excited to show them his plasma TV, and he just gets
hugging up myself.
Oh man!
If I want to watch it standing up. The best part of that is
I'm pretty sure my phone is bigger than his plasma was.
You know how many they took like 20 different takes for Melora Hardin to hit the TV, the actress that plays Jan with the Dundee. Just like, all right, keep throwing the Dundee. You say your line. And the best line of the entire show after she hits the TV and he goes, "That's my plasma. Have fun paying me back with your $0 a year salary plus benefits, babe."
Snip, snap, snip, snap. You have no idea what the toll that 3 vasectomies takes on a person. That's from that same episode too.
I also listened to shout out to another podcast, the Office Ladies podcast. Angela and Pam talk more about like the behind the scenes, and they basically gave light to the directors decided that Jan in that episode was going to be wearing red and like surrounded by like red and fire to symbolize the devil the entire episode. I thought that was just so perfect.
I think we should give out Dundees on this show, but not Dundees. They're like, we got to come up with a better name for it.
You remember what we used to do in the studio? It was just like mic's going off, muted. Mute.
So, for anybody that doesn't know that we did college radio together, we had 2 rooms and they were separated by a pane of glass and a bunch of that foam stuff you put on the wall, the soundproof foam. And it got to the point where me and Mark would be in the control studio and Mike and Jack would be in like the second studio, which had a board, but you couldn't like control things. And Mark, anytime Mike said something that Mark didn't like, he would just reach over and go, "Boop, you're done. You're in timeout."
Hey, so, to be fair, it never lasted longer than like 30, 40 seconds. I was pretty nice about it.
With that being said, that's a really good time to introduce one of our segments for this podcast. Mark, you have that power once again to mute anyone that you don't like what they said.
Oh, man.
And it doesn't have to just be Mike. It could be anybody. It could be Mike or I don't know, Mike.
Oh, I got an option. Could it be Mike?
It could be Mike if you really want to
really want.
Roll the
But yeah,
dice,
so-
mix it up a little bit.
I mean, I could just start talking and you could.
He did it. He really did it.
This is
No, Mark.
This is the best.
He really muted himself.
What? No, what?
Call this segment the crossing guard, where, as we're aptly named, crossing the line, anybody who crosses the line in Mark's terms will be promptly muted, and then Mark will be able to. You see what I'm going with. He gets mute you.
I'll be honest. I forgot my sign. It didn't come in the mail yet.
I
So
almost wish
working
that
on
we didn't have. I almost wish we didn't have video and Mike just stopped speaking. Like it was just like. Could you imagine if we were an audio only podcast? Mike would have just cut out, and everybody would have been like, "What the hell just happened?"
They'd be
is
disappointed.
he muting him right now?
Mark, where's the
Somebody's
nearest
gotta drive
stop
the
sign?
show.
Can
If
you just
I'm
go and
muted,
take-
what's
take it
gonna
down?
happen?
Hey, to be fair, I am moving out of this apartment complex this week, so maybe I'll just like grab a stop sign.
All with a bang.
Just
Grab their stop sign.
just airdrop your location before we leave, so we know where to put it back.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I'll put it back.
I know it's a crime to steal street signs and stuff. And to the authorities in Iowa, I never actually did this, but there was a road about 45 minutes away from my apartment that I went to a couple times.
Where the nearest house was.
Yeah, exactly. I had to go there to pick up my groceries every day. But on the way to one of our rival teams, there was a road sign that said Thunder Road. And I know a lot of people that are big Bruce fans, but one of our best friends from college, me and Mike Morgan, I really wanted to steal that Thunder Road sign for Morgan. And I don't think I could admit to it if I did it right now, and I don't think anything would happen. But yeah, I think I could have gotten away with that because there was no human within 15 miles of that road.
They don't have internet in Iowa. They can't watch this.
That's true.
I'm imagining like that one person that does live on that road. They like gave directions to somebody, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm like 31 Thunder Road." Like, okay, yeah.
Sick.
But
I
I
don't see a
doesn't have
Thunder
anything
Road
else.
anywhere.
I feel like they would have the most sturdy signs. Like that thing would be bolted in so good, you'd have no choice but to just give up after 20 minutes of trying.
It was actually just painted on a block of wood.
Was it spelled correctly?
THUNDR.
At least they nailed it.
Yeah.
All right. And on that note, let's get it back to conversation.
That can't be a good segue to whatever we were going to talk about next.
Can't be. Listen, quite frankly, I don't even remember what we were going to talk about next. It was something to do with sports.
Oh,
I think
let's
it's
care
obvious
about the
that we
World
need to talk
Baseball
about
Classic
how-
for 2 minutes.
Let's talk about how Trey Turner is the most American.
Most American.
The most American out there.
Last week, Mike explained to us why Jeff McNeil hates America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, I think there is every player on the Mets, I believe you got to,
I mean,
hates America.
look at the production in the World Baseball Classic by team. Phillies have to be up there at the very top. I mean, not only the 3 Team USA guys. I mean, Bryce Harper did more good for the U.S. team than Pete Alonso and Jeff McNeil, and he sat on the bench.
That's a 0 WAR, baby. It's not a
Right.
negative.
Edwin Diaz got hurt celebrating. Idiot. And then you've got Taijuan Walker pitching 4 innings of beautiful baseball for Team Mexico. I mean, Phillies looking good. Mets, not so much. And by transitive property, maybe aside from Taijuan Walker, who's not pitching for the U.S., very American.
So you're saying if you play poorly in the World Baseball Classic, you hate your country.
Yeah, that was by design.
So somebody explained to me what Great Britain was doing.
Great Britain has a baseball team?
They do. They got Microsoft Word painted jerseys.
Oh, they weren't painted. They were screen printed, but not very well.
Dude, they were
So,
falling off their chests as they were
T-Public?
playing.
You can go and print those, and the more people that buy the jersey, the cheaper that you get as a group. It's like if you
I
get
think I had one of those.
Bulk order jersey.
$25 each.
Hey, my All-Star year when I was 10 years old, we had the exact same jersey.
Why don't they just put Queen Elizabeth on it and be like "Rip" and Queen Elizabeth
Rip.
on the middle of the jersey?
The queen would be really, really pissed off right now. If she saw those jerseys, yikes.
Well, she's dead.
R.I.P.
Sorry,
I was waiting. That was like the finish him, and Mike was like, "Here we go, uppercut, got him." Just in case you didn't know.
that was
left,
on a
right,
tee.
left, right, up, down, X, square, triangle, left.
Cut that.
That was more of a button mash, but
That's how I used to
job
play.
done.
That's how I used to play Mortal Kombat.
And that's talking baseball. Back to you in the studio.
Now back to you at the station.
So this World Baseball Classic, guys, we talked about it last week, and we all kind of got to the agreement that like we don't care. And over the last week, all of a sudden I care very much. And I don't know if it's because of the Phillies representation in the World Baseball Classic, like Mike was alluding to, or because there is a huge part of me now that we get to see. Is the game tonight? Tomorrow? By the way, we're recording this on Monday. So
Tonight,
the game,
Japan is playing against Mexico.
Yeah, right. And that started 2 hours and 40 minutes ago. So it might be over.
By the way, if it does end
bottom
up
of the
being
seventh
Japan,
right now, because we already alluded to it. We're not recording this tomorrow. We're recording this in Monday.
if it does end up being
It's
Japan,
up 3-0.
it may not be now, but if it does end up being Japan, the thing that I've been looking forward to all month in my not caring state is watching Shohei Ohtani face this American lineup. Because that's the baseball that I want to see, is best against best. And this American lineup is loaded. We've talked about it. And Shohei Ohtani is an elite two-way player. Like that, to me, would be must-watch television.
I already saw a report that said Ohtani, even if Japan ends up winning this game and coming back, that they are leaning towards not pitching him. Now, they said that could change, but I'm with you. I would love to see that. I think that would be a really exciting game, and I think it would be pretty close. Otherwise,
give me 2 innings. I'm not looking for 7. I don't want anybody to pitch 7, but give me 2 innings. I just want to see him get through 6 or 8 hitters over the course of 2 innings.
At any point in the game, too. It doesn't.
Yeah, sure. He doesn't have to start the game. God,
Can I tell
you imagine Shohei on the bump to get the save?
That'd be great.
Electric.
That would be great.
Also,
don't celebrate afterwards.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, shake hands and walk off.
Yeah,
embarrassing, but
yeah. Can I tell you? I honestly still don't care. A week later,
really at all?
I might care less.
I think it's not like us as Philly fans watching Trey Turner just absolutely be incredible is probably what's like essentially making us so happy to watch this. Beyond everything else, we're getting to see an investment our team made, and it looks good before we even got to really see it in action. Like, it doesn't get better than that for Philly fans, but I see where Jack's coming from. There's still no excitement around it. There's people I think people are more excited because we're getting to the finals and stuff, but there still isn't enough excitement. I feel like there should be more somehow. I don't know.
It's just that you can't you're not going to compete with March Madness. We talked about it last show, but it's the hype of March Madness was overshadowing the World Baseball Classic. So the round of 16, it's certainly going to overshadow the World Baseball Classic. Again, not in other countries, but in the United States where we're recording from, unless anyone's changed zip code since last time we talked. No one really cares about it.
I'm in
Mark's moving bunker. We don't know where.
Right.
I'll never tell you either.
It's not necessarily here.
Is that because you don't want to be friends with us, or is that because you're illegally stealing road signs on your way out?
I was illegally stealing the road signs, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure you still want to be friends with us.
Yeah, well, no, I'm stealing Wi-Fi, and I don't want my neighbors to know. So
Mark's Wi-Fi is I steal stop signs.
Is that the password or the Wi-Fi name?
Both.
That's the Wi-Fi name. The password is it illegal?
Question mark?
Question mark. You had to fit in one special character. Was not a requirement.
I think it's a good password. I don't know.
Yeah. Our Wi-Fi name here in this apartment is it's 5G and Michigan still sucks.
That's a good password.
I was pretty proud about that one. Yeah.
That's actually a pretty good password.
Mine's pretty lame. It's Frontier 5680, and the password is all numbers because
Mike definitely is the guy that doesn't change his Wi-Fi password.
I see that.
I didn't know Frontier Airlines did
I got
Wi-Fi.
muted before I was able to do that.
Is that segment still rolling?
So I think it's an evergreen segment.
Sweet.
Yeah, Jack, by the way, Frontier does it. It's $12 and there's no seats. You get duct taped to the wing of the plane. So however much your ticket costs, they buy that amount of duct tape. So like if it's a $12 flight, you get $12 worth of duct tape. You're taking chances.
Do we think $12 of duct tape is enough to hold you on there?
No.
We don't know.
No, you are gonna get flipped, bro.
Let's go to
Let's
the
let the
dollar.
Mythbusters find us out.
I will say, and
I'm
I
texting
don't mean
right
to
now.
alarm anybody, but one of my best friends, Rob, is a
Duct
pilot.
taped himself to a wing.
He works for United, and he basically all the time tells me that the most commonly used tool to fix things on airplanes is duct tape. If
Yeah,
anything is
probably
wrong,
40.
they're usually like, yeah, let's just duct tape it. And
Yeah.
you're flying on
Flying
that
in the
air,
sky.
just
That's
a big
great.
piece of metal going through the sky.
Awesome.
Mhm.
I mean, what am I gonna do? Like, am I gonna call up the airline and be like, listen, you need better adhesive material? They're gonna be like, shut up, goodbye, click. Next thing I'm gonna hear is a dial tone.
I'm
Like-
boycotting M3 because I don't like their stance on nuclear weapons.
What am I? No, but like, what am I gonna do? They say, oh, we use duct tape. What's my alternative? I don't
Silly
fly.
putty.
Well, M3 has a stranglehold on
Play-Doh?
the duct tape scene, and
No, Play-Doh wouldn't work because all the kids who fly your flight would try to eat it.
Yeah,
have
all the
a
kids would eat
steel
it.
guy outside of your aircraft.
It's like the Twilight Zone. The kid's gnawing on the wing because there's Play-Doh on it. The little gremlin on the wing.
On this episode of The Last of Us.
Oh God! Get us to our final segment, Julie. Get us to our final segment.
All right, we got one more thing we got to talk about before we get to the fun stuff.
Yeah, this has sucked so far.
Really boring.
So Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, we talked a lot about free agency last week. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson signs a 1-year deal.
Is that what
with
we're going
the-
with? Because he's got a couple of different names. We have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, CJ Gardner-Johnson, CJ Gardner, Chauncey Gardner, CD Deuce.
You can like
I go CJGJ.
CJGJ
I
works.
forgot about that.
The-
CJGJ the third.
The
or
player
whatever it is.
formerly known as CJGJ. But he signs a 1-year deal with the Detroit Lions. And obviously 3 of the 4 of us are big time Eagles fans. I think you could remove the Eagles fandom from this for what we're about to talk about and do this objectively. And so maybe Jack, you might be the best at it out of us, but I think the 4 of us could remove the Eagles fandom and do this objectively. CJ Gardner-Johnson's agent is a dummy.
Sucks. Terrible.
That was malpractice in agency at its finest.
It was one of those being in Atlanta, I got to see the whole Freddie Freeman thing go down and like how people felt about it. And it feels the same. I don't know why it just feels the same. These guys, it was negligence.
For context, CJ Gardner-Johnson's agent, after CJ had reportedly gotten an offer, multi-year offer from the Eagles, it was reported to be pretty strong, but CJ wanted top tier safety money, 16, 17 million a year. Wasn't getting it. Jesse Bates signed for 16 for a multi-year contract. From that point forward, the safety market completely tanked. Guys were getting 1 and 2 year deals, 6, 7, 8 million a year. So he ends up getting the 1 year, 8 million from the Lions instead of taking the multi-year deal from the Eagles because they moved on. They re-signed James Bradbury. They restructured the contract for Darius Slay. Really didn't want to take on another big contract. So ultimately, 1 year, 8 million to the Lions. They gave Philly an option to match. They declined. And then the agent tweeted out perception versus reality, 1 year real versus 3 year fake. Which sounds better to you? 1 1-year deal equals 8 million, which we all know was reported to be the Lions deal that he took. 2 3-year deal, 24 million max with 17 million plus in year 3. Which one you taking? ? Mic drop. Obviously, throwing shade at the Eagles. CJ cleared up in his press conference that he had no bad blood. He had no disrespect to the Eagles organization. That remains to be seen, but wild situation. So I just wanted to kind of give context to that. And I really want to hear what Jack thinks about this situation as a third party. Obviously, we can take ourselves out of the equation as Eagles fans, but really weird by the agent.
It's just like, first of all, it's just bad. Like Zuli said, I mean, it's like agency, being an agent 101, and then whatever the complete opposite of that is. Like, I feel like, I don't know. It's
first the inverse of 101 is 101. So I don't know what to tell you.
Wow. Inception.
Burn.
Got him. But yeah, the whole, like, it's malpractice, and then to go out and think you're owning the world by tweeting out your terrible business practice with the mic drop at the end. That's just, it's double. It's like, no one should have wanted to work with the guy that eventually, like, whether it was to the world or just in the inner circles, like, the context of how that all went down would have gotten out to people that needed to know about it. And I feel like if people are smart, he would not be the agent for a lot of other players. But then to tweet it out to the world and just let everyone know you're a dumbass, like, that's the ultimate sign of, I think I'm smarter than the system. I think I'm smarter than everyone else. And I don't know, like, you obviously don't wish for people to fail ever. And like, I'm not an Eagles fan, so I'm not that close to this situation, but like, that's one of those guys where you hope that maybe he doesn't get as much business for a couple years, just to teach him a little humility, because it's like, yeah, it's a business, but you did a guy pretty wrong in whatever name you want to call CJ Gardner-Johnson right there. And then it's just, even if people don't associate that, like, CJ Gardner-Johnson didn't say anything, but like, some people are going to associate what his agent said with CJ Gardner-Johnson, which is just another unfair point of that. Like, his name's going to be tied to that when, like he said, there's no ill will towards Philly. He's not the one ultimately making the business decisions like this. So I just feel bad for the guy, plain and simple. And the agent sucks. CJ Gardner-Johnson, like, hope he has a great career the rest of his way. Hope this doesn't impact him. And yeah, like, he needs to make as much money as he can, but it's a weird situation.
But I think too, the one thing that I think we can all agree upon, like, we say, oh, how he's a cap wizard. He does such amazing things with the cap. And the Eagles have a formula that works, and some teams do it as well. And some teams apparently don't know how the rules of being a general manager work, but the Eagles do a really interesting but yet very well known tactic of the dummy years, right? They have all these dummy years down the line where that, the back end of the contract is loaded, right? So CJ Gardner-Johnson's contract would have been like 3.5 for 17 or something along those lines, where the third year is a dummy year. It's partially guaranteed, and the likelihood is the Eagles probably would have had a formula with a June 1st designation to cut CJ Gardner-Johnson after year 2 and save cap space. I don't blame CJ Gardner-Johnson for going to take guaranteed money. I think that he and his agent, I think they miscalculated the market, especially, as Mike said, after the Jesse Bates signing. It did dry up pretty significantly. And I'm not going to say that that's a bet. Like, it happens, right? Sometimes you and your agent just play the market poorly. Sometimes you and your agent play the market unbelievably well, and you bet on yourself and win, like Aaron Judge did this past season. But I'm not going to give the guy any flack for taking more guaranteed money. What I will give flack to is his agency for basically trying to throw the team under the bus, when in reality it doesn't seem like that's entirely the bulk of the situation.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to add to that at that point. I mean, it's not on CJGJ. It's on the agency. It's always on the agency. They're the ones having the talks. These guys are just basically saying yes or no at the end of the day, normally. I would take the guaranteed money too if I were him.
And I don't blame anybody for taking guaranteed cash.
That's the thing. We're not saying, tweet afterwards, obviously, though. You're not that deal, as reported in that tweet, basically suggests that CJ's getting the first 2 years at $7 million. We don't know how much of that is even guaranteed.
Right.
And then you're getting cut with the opportunity to restructure that deal moving forward. That's not an advantageous deal for CJ, especially at the point of his career. So
correct.
I totally get why they wouldn't take that, but you have all the leverage in the world. You're 25 years old. You're coming off of a really good year in your first year as a safety. I understand you want to make 16, 17 million, but even if you wanted to come back and do the 1 year and bet on yourself, figure that out. I mean, again, that's where the agent went wrong, and then they have zero market for it. I know there were several other teams that were considering that as an option, one being the Bengals, who ended up losing Jesse Bates, and they moved on. They said, all right, Nick Scott, you're coming in. You're a more favorable, you're at a more favorable price point at this moment. we need to continue to build our team. We have other needs that we need to fill. And for CJ, I feel like his window was the first day or the second day. As after that second day, that's why I thought he was coming back to Philly, because at that point, if you're going to be making significant money, that team that's going to be giving you that major contract is either going to be the Bears, that has a ton of money to spend, or they want to be able to throw that money and that contract and earmark it down for you and move on with their wish list for the offseason. You can't feel like going into that situation as CJ Gardner-Johnson, you're in a strong point by that Wednesday, Thursday of I'm still going to get 16, 17 million. And that's where I do feel for the guy, because I think he's an extremely talented player. I think he could make that money at some point in his career. Was that market there for him this year? Absolutely not. But you need to be able to pivot quickly if you can see how the market's starting to shake out. And he just didn't have that opportunity and ended up getting into a situation that necessarily, I wouldn't say benefits him at the end of the day. He's going to have that 1 year to be able to show off his talents. I know the Lions are now a really interesting, secondary and team for that matter. They obviously had a lot of success later into last year, and we'll see what they can build on with a lot of those draft picks. But ultimately, I feel like if he wanted to go back to the Eagles, or he wanted to go to a contender like the Bengals and compete for a Super Bowl while still making that same kind of money, maybe even better money, he should have been a little bit more open to acting quicker and figuring out a better way to go about it, instead of being super greedy and wanting that top tier safety money after 1 year of playing the position.
Mark, it's time. Hit the sounder.
Here we go.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is segment time for us here. Final segment of the show, each and every episode of Crossing the Line podcast, where one of our hosts has a interesting, to say the least, side topic for us to get into. And we have very little time to prepare for it, as we kind of do it on the fly right before the show starts. And even then, we may not even have a full grasp on things. But this week, that role belongs to our friend Jack. Jack, final segment's yours.
First, want to start off by just saying we are a sports podcast and we all went to Penn State. So I'd be very remiss if I didn't quickly mention that. Again, you remembered the one weekend.
I do.
Better than most. But Penn State wrestling just won their 10th wrestling national championship in the last 12 years. Cale Sanderson, the greatest dynasty that no one ever talks about. Again, sports podcast, Penn State podcast. Remiss if we didn't mention that Penn State wrestling is the greatest dynasty in sports over Alabama football currently. That being said, this segment is going to go completely the opposite of dynasties in sports, because the best part of the month of March, and now it translates into the month of April as well, for March Madness is Cinderella runs. And, a run for a 16 seed like Farley Dickinson, who shouldn't have even been in the tournament, that lasts 2 games. Some teams go further, but this segment is any sport that you can remember watching, any team, it could be yours or someone else. Give me the most memorable, or one of the most memorable Cinderella runs that you can think of. I don't mind starting if everyone else wants a little bit more time to think on this, but if someone has one off the top, go for it.
Are you going with the Miracle Team?
USA? No, I wasn't alive for that.
I'm kidding. I do have one. I'll start. I was thinking right off the bat, I thought immediately of who I wanted to go with, and it's the 2013 UConn Huskies, led by my boy Shabazz Napier. And the only reason that I really wanted this team to succeed, I went to a Temple basketball game when I was in high school against UConn and did not know who Shabazz Napier was. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is awesome. Like, I think this kid is going to be really, really good. And I think he's going to be fun to watch in the tournament. And obviously there was a lot of buzz around him that season. That was his senior year. And just going into that run as a 7 seed and taking down some of the teams that they did. Michigan State was a really good team. That Kentucky team that they beat in the national championship was a powerhouse team. And I mean, that was just a lot of fun for me. I picked them in my bracket that year. And one of the few times that works out for you, just being able to have a bracket that is fun. You can follow a team that's, not necessarily the favorite to win. And I feel like that's the only time that I haven't gone with a 1 or 2 seed. And it was solely because I saw Shabazz Napier in Philly. against Temple, and it was just a fun run.
I have like two that came to mind, but I think I have to go with the one that's like the classic, the almighty, the '04 Red Sox. It's one of like my earliest memories, really. Not like my earliest memory, but one of my earlier. Oh, I didn't. I took it.
Bye, Jack. Bye. Love you, buddy.
You want me to use a different one, Jack? I'm sorry.
We'll see you next week.
No, you've already started.
Well, I'll go with it then. That was one of the greatest sports stories. And I mean, obviously they made 30 for 30s that are great for it too. Like what they did was amazing, but even the best part is that they just broke that whole streak. Now they've actually won like a bundle of World Series. It's less cool now kind of that they did that, but that's not the
Yeah, the fact that they broke the curse that way was, if you're going to do it big.
Yeah, 04 is like such a I imagine 04 for Red Sox fans is the same way that like 16 for the Cubs feel, and 2017, 2018 for the Eagles, the way that like the fan base feels. Like that first one, either the first one ever or the first one in 100 years, has to be something. Like the team now that you shift to, the franchise you shift to now is the Cleveland Guardians. Like they have not won a World Series in what, 80 some odd years at this point.
Yeah.
It would be like euphoria in the streets of Cleveland.
Jack, do you want to use my second one?
No, you can use your second one if you want. I just don't. I mean, I don't think anyone has who I'm gonna go with. So
the Guardians haven't won in 74 seasons. The last,
there you go.
1948.
Nah, Jack, go ahead.
That's got to be the longest active drought for teams that have won a championship in North America. I would think, right?
I can't think of any longer.
I mean, the only other one that I could think of, have the Ottawa Senators won since they won like the third ever?
What was the? Have they?
I don't know.
I'm trying to think.
You're the hockey guy here.
I don't believe so. What was the year the Guardians won again?
70, or would have been 1950. Been like 1950, 1949.
Okay, championship drought in the NBA, 71 years for the Kings.
Yeah, but they've never won. What I'm saying is, or have they?
Fair. It's 71 years. I feel like it would if they have.
Well, it has to be because the NBA this is year 76.
Right.
Were the Kings one of the originals though? I feel like they were a later ad.
It probably would have been. They would have been in St. Louis at the time, perhaps.
That makes sense.
I can't remember if the Senators have. They made it pretty far in the Daniel Alfredson, Danny Heatley years of the early 2000s, but I don't know if they have.
The last time they made it, they lost to the Sharks, right?
The longest on the list right now.
Toronto, right?
The Maple Leafs, 50.
Yeah, 67
years, I think.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, so mine is actually, this is a good
Cleveland.
segue. Mine is hockey related.
Because mine is
good, perfect. Again, I have to stay on brand, talk hockey when I can. My favorite Cinderella run that I can remember, and truly one of the only times I've enjoyed Primanti brothers at Penn State, is Penn State men's hockey winning the Big Ten championship in 2016, 2017. I believe it was their fifth year as a D1 program and fourth year in the Big Ten. And they take down Michigan, who is one of the great collegiate programs of all time, Minnesota in the semifinals in overtime on a goal scored by Eric Audio, the defenseman, and then double overtime championship against Wisconsin. I mean, three of the perennial powerhouses in college hockey, and this is the new kid on the block taking them down, bang, bang, bang. Liam Folks double overtime with a 5-hole goal. And that was just really cool because, I mean, I had come into Penn State in 2014 as a freshman, 2 years after they became a D1 program. And 2 years later, they're winning it all in the Big Ten. And then they went on and they won a couple rounds in the NCAA tournament. Just a really cool run. And simultaneously, as that was going on, Penn State wrestling was rattling off 5 straight individual championships in the wrestling in Primanti Bros. It was one of the greatest hours of Penn State sports I've ever witnessed. But that was a pretty cool run just for how new that program was and the names they beat. It'd be like Penn State football coming in 5 years, brand new program, and beating Auburn, LSU, Alabama back to back to win a championship.
All while I remember that run, and there was a burner account on Twitter for Eric Audio called Eric Audio Search. and he had come over for college from Finland, so he did not speak English very well. And I remember them just tweeting out every like outcome of the game as if it were Eric Audio talking in the press conference, and just an unbelievable follow-up all the way through.
When burner accounts do good.
All right, guys, let me ask you guys a question before I give you mine. What's the best odds you've ever gotten on a single bet? Not a parlay. What's the best long shot winner you've ever had?
Are we talking that we actually like just randomly put money on, or actually thought?
Yeah, I mean, like it doesn't have to be like a think piece here. What's the best odds you can think of?
Plus 970 Oral Roberts first round upset over Ohio State a couple years ago, and I bet that with my heart and my mind.
Listen, you get plus 970 on one game. It's not too bad.
Hammer that.
The reason I ask, it seems like Mark and Mike, you guys are struggling to think about it.
Well, I've never sports bet in my life. The only thing I've put money on is fantasy football.
Yeah.
All right. So the reason that I ask is because I don't think any of us envision a 5,000 to 1 odds winner in anything.
Oh my God, you're going to do fucking soccer, aren't you?
I don't think any of us envision a 5,000 to 1 odds winner.
Soccer.
Leicester City is the greatest Cinderella story of all time. 2015, 2016, Leicester City, Premier League champs, 5,000 to 1 odds to win the Premier League. And remember, guys, the Premier League too, you don't have playoffs. If you're at the top of the table at the end of the year, you win the Premier League. There's no, oh, well, this team snuck in and went to the championship. There's a 5,000 to 1 odd team, and they come out and win the Premier League outright in a game that was, by the way, the game against Chelsea to win the Premier League was sensational. So you want to talk about Cinderella stories? Give me a team that was 5,000 to 1 to win one of the greatest leagues in the world.
United States of America against the Soviet Union in the 1980 Olympic Games at Lake Placid. What is more, Jeff McNeil might be un-American, but you just said soccer was the greatest upset in the history of sports, ignoring a hockey team that plays for your own first
I will say, the only thing
first of all, it's one game
talking about
versus an entire season.
People forget they had to beat the Finns in the gold medal game 2 days later.
Unimportant to the storyline. Don't let facts get in the way of a good Disney movie.
Leicester City, the equalizer. That's the only thing I like about soccer, football. The British announcers. That's it.
Come on. The guys that yell, go!
Them too.
The
Soccer
Telemundo guys,
good.
money.
I like when those guys do football.
You're giving me crap, not because it's not a good pick. Because I know objectively it's a good pick. Search your heart. You know it's a good pick.
It is a good pick from a guy who's a sports nerd like
don't
yourself,
like soccer.
but it's not fun.
No, it's a great underdog pick. And
all right, you know what was the best upset of all time? Mark's 12U CYO basketball team. Like,
when Timmy hit that bomb, I
told you about that. That was a run for a lifetime.
What do you want me to say?
Boom goes the dynamite.
Yeah, you want me to pick Mark hit the game-winning free throw to win the game 9-8?
It was a layup, but whatever. Whatever, guys.
High score with 3.
Just so we can all know, my second one is a Philly biased one, and you guys can think of it probably. It's a hockey one.
2010.
Oh, a 3-0 comeback and a 3-0 game? Like, come on. Amazing.
Come on.
Yeah.
I was going to say the Tampa Bay Rays until they faced the Phillies in the World Series and got absolutely destroyed. That was fun.
I mean, if we're being objective here, nobody wants to admit this because 3 of the 4 of us are Eagles fans. The 2007 Giants was an objectively incredible run.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not going to give credit because they're the Giants and Eli Manning is vastly overrated. But from a standpoint of going on the road 3 times in 3 weeks and then beating maybe the best professional football team to ever exist is a pretty darn impressive run.
How about the 0-1 Patriots? Also
a good one. I mean, they got helped out by the refs. I mean, the snow. I mean, they beat the Raiders.
Can that Patriots team be the best ever without winning the only thing that matters in a season?
No, probably not.
Yeah. If they had lost one game in the regular season and won, they probably would be considered the best team of all time. They just lost the only game that matters in that
Correct.
argument.
Right. That's the thing. I mean, so you could talk about the greatest regular season team of all time, but are they really the best of all time? Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, you go 85 Bears, you go a couple of different 80s teams, 49ers, couple of 90s Cowboys, couple of 70s Steelers. Like, I think you have to pick Super Bowl winners first.
72 Dolphins.
72 Dolphins are probably the best example. I mean, only undefeated team ever.
It's the only time I can talk positive about football. 25 years before I was born.
Poor guy. Hey, things are looking up. If Tua doesn't break his skull again, they might have a shot.
Jeez.
Tua's got to retire. It's over.
Don't even joke about, we said this last week. Man should just stop.
Maybe we should just say it every week until it gets to Tua.
Tua,
should retire. These 4 guys can't shut up about it.
I don't think it's
So they've had a podcast for 14 weeks and they have like 12 followers. And every single time they've mentioned you.
Yeah.
You should listen.
And 11 of the 12 followers agreed in the poll they played.
91 to 9.
And the one guy that said no was one of the hosts
Tua.
that just cares about it's me who just cares about his team.
All right, guys. Well, this is a lot of fun. I think it's probably just about time to wrap this up for this week's edition of Crossing the Line podcast. You can find us, of course, at YouTube if you found us a different way, Crossing Line Pod. Probably get to work on a social media account soon. Get a Crossing the Line podcast Twitter account. We'll get an Instagram account. We'll get to working on that as well. So this was a lot of fun, guys. Any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
No, win some bets this weekend. Let's have some fun watching March, or don't win some. Actually, no. Like Zuli said, let's take your advice. Don't place a bet. Just enjoy.
Have fun.
One of the greatest spectacles in all of sport.
I live in Georgia, guys. I can't sports bet.
Yeah, and you can't steal that stop sign.
Send me your DraftKings info. We'll figure it out. I mean, I would never do such a thing.
I'd play us out to Thunder Road, but we'd probably get taken off of YouTube.
We also got to figure out that.
Yes, we do. Anyway, for these other 3 guys here, somewhere along this box line, Mike Davella, Jack Molesky, Mark Fagnani, I'm Tyler Zulli. We'll catch you next week for another edition of Crossing the Line podcast. Until then, have a great rest of your week.